So AQuA started during COVID. Georgia and I were looking at a way of collaborating and documenting Melbourne's queer history, but also sharing Melbourne's queer history.
Yeah, the process was, I guess, identifying those significant timeline events and placing them from 1856 all the way to this year, 2022. So the whole mural is a huge timeline.
We're so fortunate to live in a city, a state and a country where there is an archive collecting the stories of the queer population and preserving those for the future, but those stories are in the archive. We really wanted to find a multimodal way of connecting people to these stories. Particularly within Yarra, there's like these places where the community was so brought together. Some really significant locations that we knew we had to include within the maps and this greater project now were the Star Hotel, which had the first OutBlack event was held there. It was also the home to King Victoria for a period of time, the Glasshouse Hotel, the Laird, Fairfield Infectious Diseases Hospital, which is now within the grounds of Melbourne Polytechnic, and the AIDS Memorial Garden there was another site that we knew had to definitely be featured. We're now joined by two of the radio hosts, James McKenzie from In Your Face and Sally Goldner AM from OutBlack.
Put on a big event for NAIDOC Week in July 2010, and we had it at the Glasshouse in Gibbs Street, Collingwood. So we had people lining up at the front door. We're really proud of what we did in terms of putting LGBT identities on a national platform within the Indigenous community.
Volunteers looked after the people when they were ill, until they died, and even after death. You know, we made sure they were remembered, looked after the garden where the ashes were. So the site, Fairfield Hospital site, which is now Melbourne Polytechnic, is terribly important in our social history. It's listed as a significant site of social history, and the AIDS garden is incredibly important, I think. Should be for all Victorians.
The history of it has always been set as 1980, when it became a gay bar. A lot of people ask, well, what was it before? And it was just your local pub, and guys just gathered there because they did. We've been there since 2007 as lessees of the Lead Hotel, lessees, caretakers, whatever you, of that part of the community as well, I guess. It's not just business.
I wanted to make something that would be as inspirational to a young girl in primary school as to a older person just coming to terms with their sexuality and identity. It is the courage to be yourself and to find that courage within you, whoever you are.
So we thought of this map was also a great way to connect intergenerationally.
To your left is Shrew Bookstore, considered Melbourne's first feminist bookshop.
The locations that don't exist anymore, venues that don't exist anymore, and you sort of hear about them in passing, and so we wanted to connect those stories with contemporary stories.
We ended up at the Star Hotel, and we were there for about 6 years, every Friday night.
The first OutBlack event I ever went to was at the Star Hotel, and the Star just was famous for kind of being a great venue for all the, I guess, marginalised mob perhaps.
There's nothing glamorous about it, but we loved it, yeah.
We really wanted to make something that let younger generations know of the work that was done before them that sort of enabled the freedoms that we have today.
Going back way before I was involved in 3CR, when 3CR started in 1976, consenting sex between males, gay and bisexual men in particular, was illegal, and 3CR was a leader in arguing for that decriminalisation that gave gay men support. There's been other programs on 3CR that supported people with HIV, and there's been a lot of progressive queer voices on 3CR.
There weren't many events at the time, and there was nothing that catered to butch, trans people, you know. It was wildly popular from the beginning. So it was the zeitgeist.
It heartened me to know that people were interested and that they were going to record things, and this was going to be kept for as a tool for others, to inform others, for posterity perhaps. It reminds us all that time is precious, We can all be vulnerable, and the COVID pandemic has proven that we're all vulnerable to any sort of pandemic. Nothing discriminates, and nor did HIV discriminate.
Blackfellas are the oldest storytellers in the world, and so a lot of our traditions are oral history, and so it's really important, like projects like Queer Ways, to kind of yarn up and sing up what happened here before, tell the stories of the past, remember them, pass them on, so we can kind of create a space for younger generations. And so it's kind of really lovely that Queer Ways is wanting to broker that space for the queer community.
We stand on the shoulders of giants, but we perhaps don't know all about the giants. And so to be able to get that sense of queer history and get a sense of queer culture going, which often we don't really define either, there was another bonus to it as well.
We obviously can't make a podcast about every story and every part of history, but we hope that from this introduction to some of Yarra's queer history, that people feel encouraged to go and do further research and maybe educate themselves about this part of history that it has so often been silenced before.